may not know, many of those films are inspired by real-life people and even events.
Inside Zak Bagan's Haunted Museum, you can learn the truth with his collection of real items.
Zak Bagans has faced demons on screen for years, but this time, the darkness isn't paranormal. Breaking news surrounding the Ghost Adventures star has stunned fans.
Whoa. There was like a knock, and then there was like a oh.
And sent shockwaves through the paranormal world. What was revealed raises serious questions about his future, his health, and the legacy he's built. As details emerge, one thing is clear. This is not the kind of headline anyone was hoping to see today. So, join us in this video as we reveal what Zak Bagan had to say. Let's get right into it. A silent post that changed everything. When Zak finally broke his silence, it wasn't through a polished interview or a dramatic live stream. There was no build-up, no eerie music, and no familiar Ghost Adventures suspense. Instead, the message appeared suddenly on his official page against a plain black background. White text, no logos, no promotion, just words. And from the first line, it was clear that something was very wrong. The tone felt completely different from anything Zak had ever shared before. This wasn't mysterious or theatrical. It wasn't teasing a new investigation or hyping an upcoming season. It was raw, direct, and unsettling. Zak admitted that something had happened inside the haunted museum, something he could no longer keep private. According to him, the incident took place after he entered room 11 alone, a space already known for intense activity. What followed, he said, changed everything. Zak described experiencing ongoing disturbances that didn't stop once he left the building. He spoke of unexplained physical symptoms and what he called a severe escalation of paranormal activity tied directly to that night. The experiences were so intense that he made the decision to step away from filming and public appearances altogether. He explained that this wasn't out of fear or exhaustion, but necessity. He said he had been undergoing both spiritual and psychological evaluations to make sure he wasn't putting himself or anyone around him at risk. What shocked many fans was his admission that multiple experts had been working with him behind the scenes. Not just medical professionals, but paranormal specialists as well. Zak said they were trying to determine whether whatever he encountered in room 11 had followed him, attached itself to him, or simply overwhelmed him in a way he had never experienced before. Then came the most disturbing part of the statement. Zak revealed symptoms he described as completely unlike anything in his entire career. He claimed he would wake up in different rooms without any memory of how he got there. He described sudden blackouts during normal, everyday activities. Even more alarming were the unexplained marks that began appearing on his arms and back, marks that specialists could not identify or explain. Zak was very clear about one thing. This was not a publicity stunt. It was not a teaser, not a storyline, and not scripted in any way. He stated plainly that he believed he had come face to face with something in room 11 that carried an energy powerful enough to alter a person's behavior. He admitted he had tried to deal with the situation privately to avoid causing panic among fans or disrupting his team. But the incidents kept escalating, and eventually, he said, it became impossible to stay silent. The message ended with a single chilling line that spread across the internet within minutes. "I am not the same person I was before that night, and I need time to understand what followed me out of that room." Almost instantly, the reaction exploded, but not with excitement, with fear. Fans, skeptics, investigators, and even fellow paranormal hosts began responding, all trying to make sense of what Zak may have encountered.
Whoa. There was like a knock, and then there was like a oh.
Whatever happened in room 11 wasn't being treated as entertainment. One thing became clear very quickly. This wasn't the usual Ghost Adventures drama. This was something deeply personal and potentially far more dangerous. Before Zak's revelation, what were the signs that showed something was wrong with him? Let's find out. When the silence became impossible to ignore. The first signs that something was wrong didn't come from Zak himself. They came from the people closest to him. Crew members, museum staff, and even longtime fans began noticing small changes that didn't fit his usual energy or routine. At first, it seemed minor. A convention appearance quietly vanished from the schedule. A haunted museum night tour was canceled at the last minute. Then came a short, vague message on the Ghost Adventures social pages blaming unforeseen circumstances. For most people, that might not have raised alarms, but for those who follow Zak closely, it felt wrong. Zak almost never cancels anything, and when he does, he always explains why. This time, there was no explanation at all, just silence. Inside the haunted museum, whispers began to spread. Employees talked about nights when Zak stayed locked inside restricted areas long after closing. He avoided cameras, he avoided the staff, and he avoided questions. Some workers claimed they heard him pacing through the hallways alone, speaking softly to himself, as if he were negotiating with someone or something that wasn't visible. Others noticed he stopped giving his usual morning briefings. Instead, the team received short, tense text messages that simply read, "Proceed without me today."
All right, well, I think we can either find some opera music or Aaron
Well, it's
knows
a
how to sing
specific
opera
person that
music.
he really liked.
As the days passed, the tension only grew thicker. Production on Ghost Adventures hit unexplained delays, and the crew was instructed not to speak publicly about Zak's absence. Even more alarming, Zak began missing internal meetings, something he had never done once in more than a decade of filming. When he finally appeared on set briefly, witnesses said he looked exhausted and distant. His focus seemed fractured, his expression hollow. Several people said his eyes stayed locked on empty spaces, as if he were watching something no one else could see. Then came the moment fans could no longer ignore. Zak abruptly ended a live stream after barely 2 minutes, saying he wasn't feeling well. But before the feed cut, viewers noticed something chilling in the reflection behind him. A shadowy figure was standing in a museum hallway that was supposed to be locked at the time. Within minutes, clips flooded TikTok, Reddit, and paranormal forums. Theories spread rapidly. Some believed Zak was dealing with a serious health issue. Others suspected a dangerous incident inside the museum, and a growing number feared he had crossed paths with something far darker than anything he'd faced before. Through all of it, Zak said nothing. No denial, no reassurance, just silence. But behind that silence, the people closest to him were bracing themselves. They knew this wasn't stress, burnout, or a bad week. Something deeper was happening, and it seemed tied directly to the museum. As days turned into weeks, those closest to Zak noticed a disturbing pattern. Zak had always been intense and emotionally invested in the paranormal, but he had also been grounded. This time was different. He wasn't just stressed, he was changing. He stopped attending group debriefings entirely. Messages became short, fragmented, and unlike him. He avoided eye contact, avoided conversation, and even avoided parts of the museum he had personally curated. For the first time ever, Zak appeared afraid of his own building. Then came reports that he was spending hours alone in the basement archives, an area usually off-limits without additional staff because of the dangerous and sensitive artifacts stored there. Zak went anyway, always after everyone else had left, and stayed until sunrise. One crew member said when Zak finally emerged after one of those nights, his clothes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and his face drained of color. His hands were shaking. He kept glancing over his shoulder, as if something was following him up the stairs. Another staff member revealed that security cameras captured Zak standing completely still in front of a sealed room for nearly 40 minutes.
But I know your thoughts on the paranormal, I know you're skeptical, but to observe your reactions to them.
He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared at the door, frozen, as if listening to something on the other side. When security asked him about it the next day, Zak brushed it off and said he didn't remember doing that at all. The most unsettling account came from a veteran investigator who had worked with Zak for over a decade. He said Zak's presence had changed into something he couldn't explain. Distant, hollow, distracted. Like his body was there, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. During filming prep, Zak would suddenly zone out, staring into the corners of the room for long stretches. When someone called his name, he snapped back sharply, as if pulled from a trance. Crew members also reported strange sounds coming from forbidden exhibit rooms on nights Zak stayed behind. Clattering noises, muffled voices, heavy thuds echoing through hallways that should have been empty. Yet every time someone checked, the rooms were untouched. And the more the crew pressed Zak about these incidents, the more withdrawn he became. He insisted he was fine, brushing off every concern. But his pale complexion, trembling hands, and growing paranoia told a very different story. The crew wasn't just worried about Zak's health anymore. They feared he had uncovered something inside the museum that he wasn't prepared to face. And whatever it was already taking a toll, one that could no longer be ignored. What happened in a room Zak never wanted to disclose? Keep watching to find out. The night everything changed inside Room 11. The turning point, the moment when everything truly shifted, happened inside one of the most restricted spaces in the haunted museum. A room so controlled that even longtime staff rarely entered it. Everyone simply called it Room 11. It was a quiet, windowless chamber used to store artifacts considered too volatile, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to ever be displayed publicly. One night, long after the museum had closed and security had completed their rounds, an alarm suddenly tripped inside that room. At first, guards assumed it was a sensor malfunction. The artifacts were sealed behind multiple layers of protection, and no one had accessed that area for hours. But when they checked the live camera feed, they froze. Zak was inside Room 11, alone. There was no keycard log, no scheduled entry, no lights turned on. Just Zak, standing in near darkness, facing an artifact case that had been welded shut months earlier after a previous unexplained incident. Security immediately rushed toward the room, but by the time they arrived, the door had been locked from the inside. They knocked, they called his name. They attempted a manual override. There was no response. For nearly 15 minutes, muffled noises echoed from behind the sealed door. Metallic scraping, something heavy hitting the floor, and what sounded like Zak speaking rapidly under his breath, as if he were arguing or pleading with something no one else could hear. When the door finally unlocked, Zak stepped out, looking pale and visibly shaken. A thin streak of dust ran across his face, as though something inside the artifact case had been disturbed. The guards immediately noticed something even more alarming. One of the artifact seals had been cracked open from the inside, something that should have been physically impossible. When asked what happened, Zak insisted everything was under control. He demanded that the security footage be erased immediately and warned the guards not to mention the incident to anyone else. But the story spread anyway, and the most unsettling details surfaced soon after. The room's temperature sensors showed a sudden drop of nearly 20 degrees during the time Zak was inside. That kind of drop had only ever been recorded in rooms housing the museum's most dangerous paranormal objects. Whatever happened inside Room 11 that night, Zak refused to talk about it. But those who saw him leave the room said he looked like someone who had come face to face with something he couldn't explain and something he couldn't escape. In the days that followed, Zak's silence became impossible to ignore. He vanished from public view completely. He pulled away from fans, stepped back from filming, and even distanced himself from close friends on the Ghost Adventures team. Calls went unanswered. Texts were ignored. The few messages he did send were short, vague, and unsettling, as if written by someone who wasn't fully present. The crew was told that all production was temporarily suspended, but no one explained why or for how long. Even veteran investigators who had followed Zak into some of the darkest locations in the world said they had never seen him withdraw like this. Museum staff noticed another strange shift. Zak stopped entering entire wings of the building, especially the hallway leading to room 11. Security logs confirmed he hadn't gone near that area since the night of the incident, despite previously checking it daily. At the same time, unexplained activity inside the museum intensified. Doors rattled without wind. Motion sensors triggered in sealed rooms. Night shift audio systems captured faint whispers echoing through empty hallways. Employees quietly speculated about a connection, though no one dared to say it openly. Rumors spread among the crew that Zak wasn't just avoiding the museum, he was afraid of it. Some believed he was suffering from the psychological toll of years of paranormal exposure. Others whispered that something had attached itself to him the night he entered room 11. His assistant later mentioned overhearing Zak talking to himself in his office, only to go completely silent whenever someone approached. One crew member claimed Zak once asked them if they had seen something following him, even though they were alone at the time. Then, without warning, Zak canceled all museum appearances indefinitely, citing only personal matters. Fans noticed immediately and flooded social media with questions, but Zak remained completely silent. No explanations, no updates. What the world didn't know yet was that Zak was preparing for something, a revelation that would finally force him to break his silence and explain what truly happened behind the locked doors of room 11. But how did Zak Bagans come to love and become obsessed with the paranormal? Stay tuned to find out. Before the fame, there was the obsession. Zak Bagans' story doesn't begin with television fame, haunted museums, or a massive paranormal empire. It starts much earlier in Las Vegas, where a young boy grew up with a fascination most people around him couldn't understand. While others were focused on sports, friends, or dreaming about the future, Zak was drawn to the shadows. He was obsessed with what existed beyond life: ghosts, spirits, and the unknown. For him, fear wasn't something to run from. It was something to chase. That fascination set him apart early on. Long before the tattoos and the confident on-screen presence, Zak was awkward, quiet, and often alone. He later admitted that his passion for the paranormal came from a deep sense of loneliness. Haunted houses, urban legends, and ghost stories weren't just entertainment to him. They gave him purpose. They offered an escape from a reality where he often felt out of place. Zak immersed himself completely. He devoured horror films, read endlessly about hauntings, and spent nights exploring eerie locations with an intensity most kids his age reserved for sports or school. It was risky and sometimes reckless, but it sparked something powerful inside him. The fear energized him in a way nothing else could. By his teenage years, this obsession began shaping who he was becoming. Zak wasn't satisfied with simply hearing stories about the supernatural. He needed to see it, feel it, prove it. That drive to confront the unknown hinted at something deeper. A young man desperate for control in a world that often felt chaotic and out of reach. Instead of building a typical social life, Zak was forming a relationship with darkness itself, chasing adrenaline through fear and uncertainty. Those haunted beginnings would eventually become the foundation of everything that followed. Unlike many television personalities who stumbled into fame, Zak Bagans was unknowingly preparing for his role long before cameras ever rolled. But even in those early years, the warning signs were there. Obsession rarely comes without a cost. And while Zak's fixation with death and spirits would one day make him famous, it would also threaten to consume him in ways no one could have predicted. How did Zak Bagans build a life as a paranormal investigator? Let's find out. From obsession to empire. By the early 2000s, Zak Bagans wasn't just fascinated by ghosts. He was determined to prove they were real. That determination gave birth to what would eventually become his entire empire: Ghost Adventures. It began quietly in 2004 with Zak and his friends Aaron Goodwin and Nick Groff filming an independent documentary. There were no big studios, no network backing, and no safety net. Just three men, handheld cameras, and an obsession that pushed them into places most people wouldn't enter after dark. The original Ghost Adventures documentary was raw and chaotic. Nothing about it felt polished. Zak wasn't calm or reserved. He was confrontational, loud, and unafraid to challenge whatever might be lurking in the shadows. He yelled into empty rooms, dared spirits to respond, and showed fear without hiding it. That honesty struck a nerve. When the documentary aired, it caught the attention of viewers and eventually the Travel Channel. Almost overnight, Zak went from an unknown thrill seeker to the face of paranormal television. Audiences were hooked. Unlike the quiet, methodical ghost shows of the past, Ghost Adventures felt aggressive and intense. It wasn't observation, it was confrontation, and Zak was leading the charge. But success came with a price. Suddenly, he wasn't investigating for passion alone. He was performing for millions. He had to live up to the fearless image he had created. The man who stared down demons and dared spirits to show themselves. The line between Zak the man and Zak the character began to blur. To fans, he became larger than life, a symbol of defiance against the unknown. To himself, separating reality from performance became harder with every season. The show made him famous, but it also locked him into an identity he could never step away from. He couldn't be ordinary. He couldn't admit fear. Doing so would crack the empire he was building. As Ghost Adventures grew from a scrappy documentary into one of the most recognizable paranormal series on television, Zak shaped himself into more than a host. He became a brand. What are your thoughts about the news Zak shared? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching as we uncovered the disturbing news Zak Bagans shared. If you found this story intriguing, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And before you go, check out the video on your screen for another shocking story from the world of the unexplained.